Welcome to Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast, episode number 44. Hi, I'm Jill. Thank you for joining us. We're happy to be sharing this episode with you today.
Hi, I'm Chris. The Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast focuses on becoming fit and strong in the second half of our lives.
Our podcast is part of the Becoming Ellie community. The Becoming Ellie community is made up of women like us, those who want to be fit, strong, and healthy as we age.
If you're curious about the name Becoming Ellie, it's based on a wrestling match between Ellie, the Norse goddess of aging, and Thor. Everyone knows Thor, but not so many people know Ellie. She became our role model because she surprised everyone after she beat Thor. Jill and I decided to make Ellie our role model.
You can find our community on our website, becomingellie.com, and on our Facebook page. We also have a private Facebook group, which we hope you'll consider joining.
I want to take a minute to thank Marilyn for the nice review on the Becoming Ellie Facebook page. She said, "I've recently started listening to your podcasts while hiking and driving. You and your guests discuss interesting, relevant, and useful topics. Looking forward to enjoying future editions."
Thanks, Marilyn. We're glad you're enjoying the podcast. Today's episode is an interesting one, I think.
Yes, today we focus on bicycling as a sport. We were lucky to have Angie, Ridgel, and Pam Semanik talk to us. They shared a lot of insights.
Yes, they made me think that perhaps I could start racing on my bike. We talked a lot about master women athletes in this episode.
Let's hear what they have to say.
Today's guests are Angie Ridgel and Pam Semanik. They are the owners and coaches at Stelleri Performance Training. They specialize in training athletes who have little or no experience with road cycling, time trial, or cyclocross, as well as working with multisport athletes who want to ride faster, more efficiently, and smarter.
In reading about their backgrounds, I can't get over all their very many accomplishments and awards. Angie Ridgel, PhD, president and head coach of the women's team, has competed in over 200 cycling, multisport, and running events since 2001. Angie has raced the Boston Marathon, Eagle Half Ironman, Ohio Triple T, and Wildflower Half Ironman. In 2018, Angie ranked as All-American Duathlon by the USA Triathlon, and she was ranked first in the Mid-East region in her age group, among many other honors, awards, and recognitions.
Pam Semanik, coach and directeur sportif, has been a competitive cyclist since 2007 and currently a Category 3 in road events with a specialty in time trial. Pam is a USA Cycling Level 3 coach. You'll also see her hitting the boards at the Cleveland Velodrome. In 2018, Pam was also ranked as an All-American Duathlete by USA Triathlon, and she was ranked first in the Mid-East region in her age group. In 2016, Pam placed fifth in her age group at the 2016 ITU World Championship in Spain. Both women have achieved many other awards as well. You'll want to go to our webpage to read the long list.
Yeah, wow. I'll tell you, welcome, Pam and Angie. You both have such terrific background in racing and in training. We're just delighted that you are here.
Thanks. We're happy to be here, too.
Yes, we are.
Pam, before we go any further, can you tell me what a director sportif is?
The director sportif, Angie kind of put that on my business card as sort of a joke, but sort of an honor, too. So the director sportif helps with our team. We have a women's development racing team. And so I help to corral the girls and get them to participate and get them enthused and help to coach them.
So you're sort of the motivational coach type person.
Yeah, we both are. Angie and I both do that. But yeah, I'm kind of the team mom, I guess.
Okay. You've both done a lot of races and participated in really impressive competitions. Both of you were primarily into cycling. Is that how you met?
It is actually. Pam and I met, I believe, at a bicycle race. And we were actually on the same team for a while, Snakebite Racing. So we were competing together at that time. And then we decided to do similar events, specifically duathlon. And so we really became training partners in that prior to when we decided to start Stelleri Performance Training.
You motivate each other. I think we had a lot of similar abilities. So it was nice to find somebody who could ride the way that I do, ride the bike the way that I do. And it was just a really good fit for both of us from both a team perspective and a training perspective.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm a recreational cyclist, and I guess I hadn't realized that there are so many different kinds of cycling: road, criterium, time trial, cyclocross, gravel. Angie, would you take a minute and explain the differences between the different types of cycling?
Certainly. I'm glad to hear that you were not familiar with those, but one of our goals with the team is to really try to reach out to women specifically of all ages and get them involved in cycling, all these cycling events. So to describe the differences, criterium is really a short event. It's usually timed, and as a beginner racer, you're going to do a 30-minute race, and usually it's on a closed course, which means no cars. And usually the course is about 1 to 1.5 miles. So you basically race around in a circle with other people, and this is closed cycling. So you're in a pack with other people around you, and you really go for time. So they're very fast. They could potentially be a little technical with turns. But they're really fun, especially when you think about having a team around you and working in team tactics. Cyclocross is sport that goes on this time of year. Actually, now is cyclocross season. And it's a little similar to criterium in that it's a closed course and it's usually timed, but it's actually takes place on grass or mud or dirt.
Oh,
so
wow.
You have to have a cyclocross bike, which looks like a road bike, except the tires are a little wider and it has knobs on it. So that's something that we do in the fall, which is usually pretty fun, especially if you think about now it's pretty dry, but when it starts to rain, it can get kind of fun playing in the mud.
So is that sort of like a kind of mountain biking?
Yeah, that's what I was picturing too.
It's similar. The bikes are a little bit different because they do look like road bikes. They're usually a little bit lighter. The idea behind cyclocross is that oftentimes there will be barriers or things you have to jump over where you actually have to get off the bike. We practice technique for getting on and off the bike quickly because that's part of it. That total time is added. So you want to try to beat your competitors by getting through the barriers or across the streams or past the mud or the sand pits before them.
Oh, wow.
So it's sort of like the obstacle races that people run, Spartan and those kinds of things, but on a bike.
It is. It is.
Okay.
Well, that sounds very challenging.
And what's a time trial?
A time trial is an event where you have a course set, and usually the distance of time trials are of two distances, either 20 kilometers, which is about 12.5 miles, or 40 kilometers, which is double that. And usually a time trial is an out and back course, and you basically are racing against the clock. So you are by yourself. You're not allowed to ride with other people. You start on the timer and you ride that course as fast as you can.
And then you also mentioned road and gravel. And I assume that's a road and gravel's gravel. Is that right? Like gravel is sort of like a path.
Correct.
Okay.
So road racing is a little different from criterium because usually road races are longer and they're sometimes not closed. So you would potentially do, a 20, 30, 40 mile road race. And those are usually going to be just distance based. So however long it takes you to go that distance will be the race. And then gravel is actually, as stated in the title, where you ride on gravel roads or dirt roads. And usually those races are also distance based. So that's kind of coming up to be very popular now. Gravel racing is kind of the in thing for the years. They're more popular now than they have been in the past, and they're more available in this area, actually, especially in the Amish country where there are lots of dirt roads.
Huh.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And I assume you don't ride a road bike on that.
Actually, you ride a cyclocross bike. So the same bike that I was talking about, it looks like a road bike, but it has a little bit wider tires with often knobs because you'll need to potentially deal with potholes or rough roads. And so you'll want that little wider tire and potentially some of those knobs to help you keeping from sliding out. So usually people do ride cyclocross bikes you could also ride a mountain bike. It would just be a little heavier and you would be a little slower.
Right. So Chris rides her bike a lot, and she does very long rides. And I'm a very nervous bicyclist, so I tend to just avoid it. The last time I went out on a bike and I fell off the trail into a bunch of bushes. So I'm not off to a great start here. Do you have any advice on how to become a better cyclist other than staying on the path?
Yeah, I think we've all had those moments where we're not so confident, when you're out riding. And I think that, a lot of times it's just really practicing some skills. It's, the ability to ride in a straight line. It's the ability to look behind you, without veering into the bushes. It's, about how to navigate through roads and different kinds of terrain. So I think it's really just a matter of confidence. It's getting out there and doing it. And of course, there's only so much that we have control over, but knowing that you are in control of that you are visible, that you're picking some roads that you're familiar with. I think that really helps to build that confidence.
Okay, that makes sense. So just keep doing it, but start with things that are achievable, or
Correct.
that feel achievable, at least, I guess.
Right.
And familiar, maybe.
Yeah, and one thing we do, just to add to that a bit, Pam and I feel pretty strongly about helping people become confident. So we actually, this past summer, had some women's rides that we did, where we invited women to ride with our small group. And during those rides, we would give people tips on, how to ride better, how to choose gears, how to make sure that you're riding safe. And we also in the past have had some clinics that we've done. And we've talked about doing that again. So probably in the spring, we may have basically a cycling skills clinic where we'll talk about how do you navigate a turn? How do you go through an intersection? And again, as Pam mentioned, how do you maintain a straight line? How do you grab your water bottle while you're riding?
Yeah, well, that would be good. And the whole gear thing, I would love that. So I will keep an eye out, and hopefully you'll have one of those so that I can come and become a better. I would like to actually ride my bike. I've got like 2 bikes that sit here.
Yeah, I laughed when you said about the water bottle, because probably 3 rides ago, I was putting my water bottle back in the holder and dropped it. That's kind of a rookie mistake, but I thought it was set and it wasn't.
And that's something that you will learn how to do. And we've all done it. I mean, you do it long enough and you don't even have to look down at your bottle cage anymore, because inherently from muscle memory where that bottle goes. A couple other things that we also deal with are for new riders or riders that maybe haven't been riding so long. We try to get them to use clipless pedals. And I'm sure every one of us, the first couple times we've been out using our clipless pedals. So those are you have a cleat on your shoe that attaches to your pedal, and it just makes your pedaling stroke more efficient. And anybody who races is using them. Excuse me. But if you just start out with that, I've fallen over going up a hill and not shifting in time, and you're going too slow. And so we've all done it. I mean, I guess we have to realize too that, you might have to risk some embarrassment when you first get out there. To Angie's point too about the women's rides that we were doing, we also like to teach our gals to ride together in a path.
I see.
For the team training, it's really important because, as Angie described, like with the crit racing and road racing, you're in pretty tight quarters with some of the other racers. So to build that confidence when you're out on the road, riding shoulder to shoulder with a teammate is a lot more user friendly than getting into a pack of gals going 25 miles an hour around a tight corner. So they're all learning together.
So you have a strong background in cycling, but then you added in duathlons and triathlons. How did you add the running and swimming into your routines?
Actually, my background is triathlon. I actually started in 2001, as you mentioned. I started doing triathlon first.
Oh. I
started with sprint, then I moved to Olympic, and then I moved to half distance. And after doing that for many years, I really love the bike. So I decided to focus a couple years specifically on bike racing. After doing that for a couple years, I decided to kind of go back to my roots and to focus on duathlon. The reason why I didn't go back to triathlon is because life just got too hectic to try to train for 3 sports. So I decided to pare it down and focus on duathlon. And actually, I really enjoyed duathlon. It's very challenging to do 2 runs during a race. So duathlon is run, bike, run.
Right, yeah.
It added another level of challenge to what I had been doing in the past.
Wow.
And you did an Ironman? Is that what I saw in your?
It wasn't a full Ironman. Ironman also owns a distance called 70.3, which is actually half Ironman.
Right.
So that was half of a full Ironman. But you mentioned the race that I did do, which was the Ohio Triple T. The Ohio Triple T is actually 4 triathlons in 3 days. And it's actually a greater than Ironman distance if you add up all of those totals. So I did that a number of years ago. It's a challenge because you have a super sprint on Friday night. Then you do an Olympic distance in the morning. You take a couple hours off. You do an Olympic distance in the afternoon. And then the third day on the Sunday, you actually do a half Ironman. So.
Oh, wow.
That sounds exhausting.
It was, but it's actually it's one of the premier events. They do have, obviously it's called Triple T Ohio. It's kind of one of those events early season events that people really like to say that they've done.
Yeah, because it would take a lot of training through the winter too, I would imagine.
Correct.
What prompted you both to start a performance training company?
Wow, I think it's just our passion for it. So we've been through racing with different teams, and I think that part of it was we wanted to bring more women into the sport. When we both started racing bikes, it's pretty intimidating. You show up at a race, you don't know anybody. It's kind of scary. You got all these people in spandex with these $1,000 bikes. It's really kind of scary to get started. Angie and I both remember, that first time that we, pulled up to the start line and didn't know anybody. And I think, we really wanted to bring more women out to do this. She and I were on separate teams at that time. Angie was racing for Snakebite Racing. I was racing for Summit Freewheelers. And at that time, I had a number of girls on that team who, they were just new to it and they were just trying to find out how to race. And we grew a really big team. And of course, just life, people's lives tend to change. And, you get a lot of girls one year and then a couple years later, you don't have anybody on the team. And that's when Angie and I decided that we're going to join forces and we're going to try to bring as many girls into that group and we're going to manage that group ourselves.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, the PhD that you mentioned is because I'm actually an exercise physiology professor at Kent State. So that's my other job. My side job is the business. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to take really what I do for my career and to allow more people to gain that knowledge and to help more people. So that was part of starting the business too, is to just be able to allow the knowledge that I have and allow other people to learn about that and to try to help women specifically in their performance, because Pam and I have been doing this for many years and still, if you look at the coaches out there, the resources available for women in endurance sports, there isn't a lot. So we felt like there was a need there for, women to coach women because we understand each other better than potentially men. And I've had many men coaches that are very good, but I think it's really special to have a coaching relationship with another female that really understands a lot of the issues that you're going to experience as an athlete.
Yes. And I noticed on your website that there's a section about masters athletes training resources. And I know for a long time, I thought that you had to qualify in a certain race or something to become a masters athlete, sort of like an Ironman. And so for our listeners who aren't sure what masters athletes are, would you give us a quick definition?
Anybody who's 35 years old or older. You don't have to do anything except live long enough to become a master.
And a master, you said 35?
I think cycling is 35. Triathlon might be 30. I'm not sure exactly.
Okay.
I'm so far beyond that age at this point.
I would say that's not very old.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And that's a really good point. It's not very old. And a lot of times when you're racing, you're in a race with other masters. Those of us who are 50 and older have to sometimes compete against the gals that are 30 or 35. And there's a significant difference. And I think part of our endeavor to do speed school was really to get those girls that are 40 plus. So we're getting the ones who are starting to see changes in their bodies and some performance considerations that they didn't have to worry about 10 years prior to that.
Right. All right. That brings up, let's talk about menopause, a subject that nobody likes to discuss. On your website, you say that you focus on Masters women athletes to help them achieve and maintain their highest athletic potential. But you also say in there that menopause changes your athletic capabilities. I suspect that most of our audience knows that, but can you tell us how it changes our capabilities?
Oh my gosh, where do we start? Okay, so I have to tell you that one of the reasons that I wanted so passionately to start this speed school team was because I was not warned by any of my women friends who had gone through menopause about any of the things that were going to happen to me. And I decided that I was not going to let that happen to my friends who hadn't gotten there yet. So part of my passion is I want to warn. I'm here as a warning to others. Right?
I guess that's because none of us like to talk about it,
And if you try to find research on women athletes post-menopause, you find nothing.
Right.
And so, the changes that blindsided me were things like the hot flashes and not being able to sleep at night, and how my feet got bigger and flatter, and how everything hurts, and how my nutrition and hydration changed. And it just all of these little things where you wonder, like, whose body do I have now? It's harder every workout felt harder. I couldn't mitigate heat as much. So, you're doing a workout and you're boiling. And I remember, I'll tell this story. I had Angie and another friend over. It was the middle of winter, and we had our bike trainers set up downstairs in my dining room, and I had the window thrown open. It was maybe 20 degrees. It was probably in the middle of February, and the wind was howling. And I said, I'm gonna be in front of the door here, girls. Let me do that. And I'm pouring down sweat, and everybody else in the house is freezing. And it's just things like that. You try to do a hard interval, and you can't, because your body isn't able to cool itself down the way that it used to be. And you can't push yourself as hard because you're always exhausted. And I think especially when that first starts to happen, you have a really hard time figuring out, what do you have to do in order to feel normal again?
Yeah. How do you advise your clients who are dealing with all the effects of perimenopause and menopause? How can you maintain and improve performance after the age 50?
Well, first I tell them that, these are the things that you should expect, because again, part of it for me was that I had no idea what to expect because nobody told me. Mm-hmm. And I think knowing that this is coming, and knowing that there are things that you can do maybe to help yourself out that's significant. Angie and I pride ourselves in training with science, and we try to keep up with what is the latest science around how older athletes need to perform and what you have to do in order to make sure that you can continue to stay at the height of your game. And a lot of those things are doing the harder intervals, faster, not longer. And we're really passionate about that. And we're sort of at odds with a lot of the multisport community, because we see women as they get older, they like to do the longer distances at a slower pace. And we're telling them, no, go shorter, go faster, go lift heavy weights, not go to the gym and, lift a 10-pound dumbbell 10 times. We really want you to go to the gym, get on that squat rack. We want you to lift 120 pounds. So, and I'm just using that as an example. We're just, we don't screw around at the gym. We want to get in there. We want to lift heavy weights.
That's good. I always am complaining at the gym about all these women who have these little teeny weights, and I just complain about it. Not that it has any of my business, but I'm always like, they should be upping their weight. So that's good advice.
It was interesting because we just came back from the Endurance Coaching Summit in Boulder, Colorado, and many of the speakers, a couple of the speakers were all pushing the idea that women, as they get older, especially through menopause, you start to lose muscle mass, you start to lose muscle strength, and you start to add more fat. So one of the ways in which you can offset that, obviously, is to try to build strength and to try to increase your metabolism. And the best way to do that is really to add more muscle mass. because muscle burns energy more than fat. So that goes along with if you feel like you're gaining weight, in particular, abdominal adiposity is something that occurs when women go through menopause. These techniques for lifting heavy weights and trying to add intensity will help you offset those changes. So that's really important.
And to eat more protein. So, that was sort of a new thing for me, to hear how much more protein women in general should be taking in, and postmenopausal women in particularly after a hard workout. So we heard a lot of that, interesting science about all these different things coming together to inform older women how to maintain their performance.
I know protein is important, but it's always such a challenge to get. And then you, of course, then run into people who say, oh, you don't actually need that much protein.
You're right. You do. I think that more and more, though, the science is pointing towards, the maintenance of muscle. And in order to do that, older women, especially masters, let's call them masters women. I don't like saying women. Masters women have to up their protein just to help support the building of the muscle, because we don't have the complement of hormones that used to assist us in doing that when we were younger.
That's true. You lose those hormones and things do get harder.
And saggier and,
Yeah. We've been there. This all leads up to, in our Becoming Ellie community, we were recently talking about how hard it is sometimes to feel slower than we used to be. And I know one of the women in our group said it's not that she wanted to beat everyone. It's just discouraging to feel like you're losing something. Do you have any advice on that, either how to address it mentally or physically?
Correct. Yeah. Obviously, you're going to, especially if you've been training for as long as I have, obviously, sometimes I feel like I'm slower than I was in the past. However, I will tell you that when I started to transition more to the intensity, when I walked away from the half Ironman and started to go more towards a shorter distance, I actually saw the exact opposite. So
really?
I actually had some of the fastest bike splits this past 2 or 3 years than I did when I was in my 30s. And it's specifically because I'm training intensity. I'm training short. And, those workouts are not pleasant. Everybody says, oh, I don't like feeling like that. I sweat too much. I'm too out of breath. But really, that is where you're going to get not only self-confidence for your abilities, but you're going to see the greatest improvement, especially when you get older. So this is something that Pam and I are really pushing, and we're getting a little bit of pushback, but I really think that if you focus on short, speedy, lift heavy weights, build strength, when I get out of the gym, I just feel like Wonder Woman. It just improves your self-confidence. You can see that your bike splits are improving, and, any benefit there would help your mental gain, and also would help your performance.
And do you know what else we're seeing? And I think this is really interesting. So Angie and I do compete a lot at age group duathlon. We usually do sprint or standard distance. So that's Olympic distance for a multisport athlete. What we're finding is that as our age groups increase, those gals are getting faster. And I am not kidding when I say I am nervous about entering into the next age group next year, because I know who some of my competition are, and those girls are ferocious. And I'm thinking, if they can do it, then I can do it too. I used to be a faster runner. I used to be a faster cyclist, but I'm thinking all I need to do is exactly put my money where my mouth is and continue to do those hard intervals and continue to lift those heavy weights and spend that time, sweating profusely because, I see that, some of these girls, they're faster than the women who are, 10, 15 years younger than they are.
I know you have the Stelleri Speed School, which is a master's women time trial team and coaching program. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Does it primarily focus on speed? And how do you help women to improve their speed?
So what we did with this team was to really, first of all, we wanted to encourage women to focus on cycling time trial. as I mentioned before, cycling time trial is just where you're racing against the clock. And that really allows you to kind of determine how hard can you actually ride. One benefit to time trial is that, if you're doing multisport, if you're doing triathlon, usually you're holding back on the bike so that you can get that run done at the end.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't necessarily know how hard you can go. So our goal with the speed school was to train cyclists, master cyclists, and also masters multisport athletes to help them determine how hard they can go. Because when Pam and I did that, we realized that we could push ourselves and still maintain that energy for the run. And specifically for the speed school, we designed the training plan for these women to focus on a event. This year, the event was the state time trial that we actually were the race directors for. So we built their training plan so that would be their A race or their primary race. And the goal was to really build their fitness to that particular event, which was a really great event because the nice thing about the state time trial is it divides out the age groups by 5 years. So you're really competing against your peers as opposed to bike racing, criterium, and road racing. You actually don't compete via age groups. You compete via categories, which basically is a level from beginner to pro level.
Oh, so you could be competing against somebody 20 years younger than you.
Exactly. The reason that we decided to do a time trial team specifically was because after doing our research on what are the things that older athletes, masters athletes need to do, it was all about, harder intervals, the speed, building that power, going to the gym, lifting those heavy weights, everything that translates directly into time trial. It's very, very important for time trial athletes to have those skills. And we just felt that it dovetailed directly into that. Plus, having a focus on masters women specifically gives us the opportunity to differentiate ourselves a little bit. And we understand these women because we are these women. And we know how you have to put more recovery time into a training plan than you would maybe if you were a 35-year-old guy. So we really wanted to have that as a very distinct team. And we think it's really fun because these girls are having the social aspect and they're also working their butts off and having a great time doing it.
That's great. So we've sort of already mentioned this, but I was wondering about the role of strength training in all of this. And so you said lift heavy. What kind of strength training do you recommend? And maybe how often would you suggest we do that?
Yes. So we first suggest to start off with twice a week.
Okay.
And when you schedule those days, you need to make sure, of course, that you have plenty of recovery between those days. So you need at least one full day of recovery. If you're doing it twice a week, ideally you should take 2 days recovery in between so that you can make sure your muscles can rebuild after you ask them to work hard. As far as intensity and weights, we build up to the heavier weights over time, but what your goal will be at the end of that, kind of the peak intensity, would be to work up to 2 sets of 6 to 8 repetitions. So that would be during repetition 7 and 8, you should be thinking that you're not going to be able to lift that weight.
Right.
That's pretty heavy weight where you're only doing 6 to 8 repetitions. So you're building up to that over time, starting with right now, actually, we're in a phase where we're doing 2 by 20 repetitions. And that's low weight.
Right.
But we need to build into the high weight. So we designed the plan for the women that work with us to progress over time so that we can maximize their recovery, but maximize their gain. So it takes a bit of time. But the end goal, of course, is not what most people would expect. Again, 6 to 8 repetitions usually.
Wow.
I want to add to that when we coach our clients in the gym, we do want them to lift, as Angie noted, lift to fail. So, we tell them we want you to be able to lift, 8 reps, but that we want you to have that 8th rep to be like, that is the absolute maximum that you're going to be able to do. So lifting to fail is a really good thing, I think, for any woman that's going into the gym to lift weights. The other thing that we are really big on, especially for masters athletes, is plyometric exercises. So women have to jump. They have to tax their neuromuscular systems in things that can help create explosive power, doing things like box jumps or squat jumps or those things that they don't look that hard, but the next day when you're unable to walk down,
they're hard. They are hard. I think they look hard too.
But I think they're critical, especially for masters women, because again,
right,
we're looking at bone loss, we're looking at loss of muscle mass. For those of us who have enjoyed a nice, career of time trialing, we're seeing our power numbers drop. This is how you bring that stuff back up.
Right.
Okay, so there is actually a reason for doing plyometric.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, besides just lifting weight, there is, so it's good to be doing all that jumping. So like when I go to my boot camp class, it's actually a good thing to be doing.
Correct. One advantage to plyometrics too is also, as you note, when we get older, we also have a tendency to get slower. You've seen the elderly people out walking around and usually their movements as a whole are slower.
Right.
The reason why that happens is because the muscle fibers that help us move quickly actually do degenerate with age. So we lose those muscle fibers that can allow us to have fast movements. So another advantage to the plyometrics, in addition to loading the bones and helping prevent bone loss, is to help to rebuild and recharacterize those muscle fibers that help us produce fast movements. So we can actually, with training, we can change muscle fibers from being the slow type to being the fast type.
Oh.
And we know that with aging, we start to lose the fast type. So again, it just helps kind of bring our bodies back to what we were like when we were younger.
So you said box jumps and jump squats. And what other kinds of things would fall into that category?
Oh gosh, my favorite are depth jumps. So it's where you're standing on a box and then you just kind of take a step off, and not a high box. So you don't want, there's a lot of risk involved with plyometrics, so you have to be really cautious. Start lower and less intense, but you kind of take a step off a low box and you land in a squat and then you jump from the floor.
Oh.
And those hurt. And I love those. Those are my favorite because I think that they give you the most explosive power. And again, I'm always looking for that for my, for time trialing and for my time trial clients. Other things are things like plyo push-ups, where you actually launch yourself, off the floor when you're doing a push-up. There's so many different things you can do. You could do body weight, where you're just doing lunges. Angie, you probably know more. What are a couple ones that you do?
One of my favorites is a split squat. And you had to be careful again with this one. So you start, actually it's called split lunge. You start in a lunge position. Mm-hmm. So with 1 foot forward and 1 foot back, and then you jump up into the air and then you switch legs.
Oh, yeah.
So say you have your left foot forward, you jump into the air and you switch legs and you land with your right foot forward. That's a pretty fun one too. And it's good to build strength specifically for our hamstrings, which have a tendency to get kind of tight and weak when we sit a lot.
Yes,
right.
I can attest to that.
Yeah, I think all of these things, you kind of have to build up to them. It's not something that you just start doing, you kind of build into it. And I'm just wondering, if we could only do one or two things to improve our health, what would you suggest that would be?
It's hard to say what I would recommend if you're talking about doing one or two things. Angie, what would you recommend?
So I would definitely recommend getting back into the gym. I mean, that's really important. And I think, especially for those of us who are busy and trying to get your runs and your bikes in, the gym is usually the first thing that's going to go. But it's super important for not only maintaining muscle mass, but to help maintain that speed. So I would recommend trying to do it, at the minimum once a week. We hope two times a week. And to focus on, you don't have to do a lot of exercises, but you could do, say, 5 or 6 exercises. It could take you about 30 minutes to do that. Focus on a couple upper extremity, couple arm exercises, couple leg exercises, and maybe some core working on your back and your abdominal muscles. And then do maybe one plyometric move.
Gotcha.
I also think that if you're going to do anything, if you're going to engage in any kind of aerobic activity, you have to do it at an intensity that brings your heart rate up for a pretty long time. So, not just to walk around the block. So many people think that, I'm going to go for a walk 3 times a week. That doesn't do it. You really have to bring that intensity up, get your heart rate going. I really feel very strongly about, as we age, you have to keep that aerobic system, really primed, and you can't do it by flower gazing.
No strolling, huh? So you don't really go with that 150 minutes for a week of moderate exercise.
Correct. Yeah, the moderate exercise is important. And I would make some recommendations. Say, for example, somebody's, a walker / jogger. What you could do is you could go out for your walk, and then you could try to integrate some faster intervals. So you can start by doing a minute to get your heart rate up, and then take 3 minutes off, and build up to being able to hold that higher heart rate for longer periods of time. But even a minute times 5 would be helpful to help get that intensity up.
To keep building up for the intensity.
Correct.
Angie, you already said that besides being a coach and an athlete, you're also an associate professor in exercise physiology. And I saw on your university's website that you invented a bike for people dealing with Parkinson's.
I have. So for the last 10 years or so, I've been focusing on how can you use exercise to actually change the brain, specifically in people who have neurological disorders, and in particular Parkinson's disease. So Parkinson's disease is a disease where we stop producing an important chemical called dopamine. And what that does is it actually slows down the nervous system, and it makes it difficult to move. So what we did in some earlier studies was to actually focus on how can we retrain the nervous system to move faster in that disease state where we're slowing down. And what we did was we actually focused on cycling cadence. So that's how fast you move the pedals. So revolutions per minute. And we found that the faster that you move the pedals in cycling, the greater improvement in the movement that we saw with Parkinson's. So with that, we actually originally used a tandem bike. Well, it was pretty challenging for the trainer to help the people with Parkinson's because they're just inherently slow. So what we did was we actually substituted the person with a motorized bike. So we developed a bike. We developed a bike basically modeled after a trainer that would ride on a tandem with you. And the motor of the bike that we invented actually helps the people move their legs faster. And what we've seen is that we have pretty dramatic improvements in the way these people move after riding on the motorized bike.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Our listeners are primarily women over 50 who are interested in being fit and healthy. But as things happen, a number of us might be dealing with different issues like chronic illness. Do you have advice on how someone can focus on fitness and exercise when they're dealing with a serious illness?
Well, it definitely depends on the illness.
Sure, of course.
Right. But I will tell you that I try to encourage the research subjects that I work with. And we've worked with people with multiple sclerosis, people with motor neuron disease, people with Parkinson's disease. What you need to do is really make exercise part of your treatment plan. It's not something in addition to taking your medication or going to see your physician. It really is part of the medical plan that you need to add in. So make that a priority and get with a personal trainer or a certified exercise physiologist to help you design an exercise program that will not exacerbate your chronic illness, but will really help you develop, increased blood flow and increased heart rate. We know in several different chronic diseases that exercise actually can change the body for good. And the American College of Sports Medicine, which I have a certification through and who accredits the exercise science program at Kent, they have a saying that's called exercise is medicine.
Yeah.
And it really is. So I would recommend for anybody with chronic disease, think about, you have to take your medication in the morning. You have to go see your doctor. You have to go exercise.
Right. Incorporate it into your lifestyle. That's great.
Do you recommend that your clients eat a particular way? And do you have any advice for us on nutrition?
We can't really give too much nutrition advice because it's, you should really be a registered dietitian to do that. But we do encourage our girls, so girls and guys, I should say, but this is really more pertinent to women, a lot of them don't take in enough energy. So, a lot of gals want to go out and do their workout, and they could be underfueled, underhydrated. They don't eat properly beforehand. They tend to bonk, where they feel like, they hit a wall when they're out doing their thing, or the next day they're starving, but they think that, oh, if I eat, then I'm going to gain weight because, I did this workout yesterday and I really am trying to lose some weight. So we want them to eat healthy. We want them to eat real food. We want them to make sure you get enough fruit and vegetables and protein and, really just pay attention. It has to be a lifestyle, right? Like, you're an athlete and you have to fuel your workout and you have to have enough energy available so that you can sustain that workout. So we're always encouraging them to eat enough. And it's really interesting that, a lot of women especially have had issues with not eating. They just don't eat enough before they go and work out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What I always like to say is, your muscles can't contract if you don't give them fuel. So you need to take in carbohydrates and fats because your body utilizes that to create energy so that your muscles can contract. So that's what I like to tell my people and what I like to tell myself.
Yeah.
And even with the masters athletes, I always tell them too, at the end of your workout, if you had a hard workout, say like over an hour and a half or really intense, because we're always giving them these intense workouts, I say, have a recovery drink, have something that you can hydrate. It'll hydrate your body. It'll add healthy dose of protein and some carbohydrate, and do that, fairly soon after your workout, because it's going to help the repair process of your muscles as well.
A recovery drink, like that be like a protein shake or something like that? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, typically. So what you want to do after a workout is, you have to rehydrate. That's a given. But
right.
And especially masters women have to try to get as much protein. I heard the latest science was about 30 to 40 grams of protein, which is an awful lot. There's ways of doing it, but, you've got some recovery beverages that are out there on the market. Sports nutrition has a lot of options, but there's also things like chocolate milk, we're always doing that, milk products, something that has leucine in it. It's probably a really good bet for a recovery drink.
Okay.
Well, you've both accomplished an impressive amount in your sports. I'm wondering, what race was the most memorable for you? And Pam, why don't I start with you?
Oh, I'm going to tell you about the Silver State 508. So this was an event that I did with a friend. So it was a 2-person team. You have to ride 508 miles. It was through Nevada.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and you have to do it within 48 hours. And so the friend that I did it with had completed it already 4 times as a solo rider. And he wanted to do it one more time, but he didn't want to do it solo. And I just thought, hey, this sounds like fun.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was also a huge challenge, and it was really different than what I've done because it's a unique experience for me. I don't know if I would ever do anything like that again, maybe with the right team members. I'm looking at one of them right now, but it was a really great experience, and I would do things differently this year. So I have to mention too that when I did the 508, I didn't realize it, but I was perimenopausal. And that messed up my whole hydration and nutrition plan. And I felt like hell when I was done, which was great because we were team hellhound. So maybe that was appropriate. I thought the experience was phenomenal, but I would sometimes I think I want to do it over again and see if I could do it better.
Yeah, that makes sense. But it does sound very memorable. And Angie, how about you?
Can I do 2? I have 2.
Sure.
Sure. We won't make you pick.
Right. I have to say, doing the Boston Marathon was pretty amazing.
Wow.
I was lucky enough to be in pretty good shape when I actually tried to qualify for Boston, and at a pretty good age, so it wasn't too challenging. So my first marathon, I actually qualified for the Boston Marathon.
Wow.
And I went and did the Boston Marathon the following year. And that was not only just to be around all those people, but the energy of that event and the effort that the people in Boston put into that was really a pretty amazing experience. And I had a pretty good day, so I can't complain about that. And then secondly, Pam can answer this because she was with me when we went to the World Championship duathlon in Spain.
Yeah.
nice thing about World Championship is you do have to qualify. So you qualify by getting a certain placing in the national championship race, duathlon race. And as part of that, you actually are part of the amateur team USA. So what they do is everybody who qualifies goes to these events, and you have a uniform that has the stars and stripes and your name, and it says USA, and then you have your parade kit. And they actually do a parade of nations just like they do in the Olympics. And they had all of the countries and all the people of those countries marching through these small, narrow streets in Spain. And then we all competed against each other. And at the end, the representative for Team USA had little American flags that he was giving everybody. And it was just, not only was everybody having a great time and some amazing athletes, but it was really an experience where everybody who was there from all these different countries were just being supportive and friendly. And it was just the greatest vibe. So I will never forget that. And we may do it again someday.
That just sounds amazing. Yeah.
Well, both of those sound amazing. I'm sure, yes, that's not something you'd forget.
Yeah, very memorable.
Okay, so here's a question that we like to ask most of our guests, and I'm going to ask each of you. How do you define the word fit? And maybe, Angie, you can go first this time.
How do I define the word fit? So I would define the word fit as feeling positive about yourself, being able to get out there and experience the outside world and nature with maybe a little discomfort, but being able to go out and do what you want, whether it be cycling or running or kayaking, and to have that be a positive experience.
And Pam?
Yeah, I think I'm going to piggyback up on that. I think absolutely it's the ability to be able to do the things that you want to do physically, and without having too many restrictions around it. If you're fit, you can go hike that canyon. You could go, surfing. You have the ability and the confidence to get out and do things. And that's what life is all about, right? All these experiences and all these great things that we can do. And, just to enjoy the outside, enjoy your health. I think that's really important.
That's so true. Very true.
It is.
Yeah, so I really appreciate both of you being on the podcast with us. But before we close, I wondered if our listeners have any questions for you, or if they want to look at your services, how would they find you?
So the best way to find us is to go to our website, which is stelleritraining.com. You can also search for Stelleri Performance Training, and I'm sure it will come up. On our website, we have details about the services that we provide. In addition to that, we also have a contact form on there where you can contact us.
Great. Well, we'll make sure that we include the website links in our show notes and on our website so that people can click through if they aren't quite sure how to spell it. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast. It's just been so interesting to hear about your services and your races and the way you look at things. I really think it's wonderful.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good luck with your podcast and keep it up.
Okay, thank you.
Will do.
Bye-bye.
Well, bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, that was a lot of information to take in.
Yes, we covered a lot. I keep thinking about the comment you said about people using the 10 or 12 pound weights. And, those are the weights I commonly use when I'm strength training. And I've worked up to those.
Right.
I do one-legged deadlifts in an effort to strengthen my ankle and glutes. And I use 10 or 12 pound weights for those by slowly lowering and raising up while balancing on one foot. Another one I like to do is where you have your elbows bent and the weights up on your shoulders. Then I do a squat, raising up to standing. And as I raise up, I lift one leg and the same sidearm by straightening the elbow. And then I lower down into a squat and do the other leg and arm. Both of those exercises really build strength, especially in the glute, hamstring, and lower back, which I need for running. Doing a lot of weight on those is not where I want to be. I know it's about pushing yourself and improving, but it's very important to keep form and know your body.
Well, I don't think I was trying to weight shame anyone, and of course depends on what you're doing, and having good form is certainly more important than the amount of weight. I think I was talking about gym classes. So, I see women in classes who use the same weight all the time. If I go back after a year, they're still using the same weights. So I just think it's important to push ourselves a bit. That's all I was trying to say. If you're just starting out, you're going to use lighter weights. If you're doing one-sided things, like the one-legged deadlifts, which are killer, by the way, you're going to lift lighter weight. I used 7.5 pounds dumbbells today for a side lift in boot camp because that's the most I could do and not strain myself. On the other hand, I'll use a 30-pound weight for something that uses my whole body. If I was doing a kettlebell swing, I'd go for a 30 or 40-pound kettlebell. And if I did them all the time, I'd increase the weight of the kettlebell over that time. If you want to get stronger, you have to keep adjusting. If you don't increase the weight eventually, you'll have to increase the number of times you do it.
Yeah, so if you're just starting out with strength training, don't let us overwhelm you. Start light and focus on your form. That's the advice I've heard from many of the personal trainers who have helped me.
Yeah, if you're working out at a gym and you aren't sure what good form is, ask a trainer who works there. There should be someone around who can tell you the best way to do it.
Listeners, please tell us what you think by leaving a comment on our social media sites. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Pinterest. Or leave us a voicemail at 330-920-6662.
Yes, let us know what you thought of today's interview with Angie and Pam. Are you going to take up competitive cycling? Also, let us know what kind of weights you use in your strength training.
If you enjoy our podcast, tell a few of your friends. Send them the link and show them how to listen on their phones or computers. You can find our podcast in many places.
Yeah, Chris, you were telling me about how Google is now showing podcast episodes in the search results. So what exactly is happening?
Well, Google is now returning podcasts and specific episodes in the search results. If you type in Fit Strong Women Over 50 in the search bar, you'll see episodes pop up and just individual episodes. You can click on them right there if you want to.
So in theory, like this episode, if someone were to type in something about cycling and fit strong women, something about women over 50, it is possible that this episode would show up in the search results.
Yes, I'm not exactly sure how they decide to return things. For instance, I tried it this past week, and 3 episodes that were completely separate from each other, one on nutrition, one on different kinds of races, and one just in general popped up. It didn't really have any rhyme or reason in my mind. I'm sure Google has it all figured out. But what the advantage is, you can just type it in and you'll see the icon for our podcast pop up with an episode. So it's just one step closer to trying to figure out how to listen to podcasts if you don't normally subscribe.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So we are definitely now showing up in many places, including Google. So anyway, please tell your friends about us.
Yes, and thanks so much for listening. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another episode of Fit Strong Women Over 50.
Yep. See you again next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.